Evelyn, I wish I could offer you some coffee. Wouldn't
Me too. That would be great.
that be neat? I know eventually we'll be able to pass coffee through the computer screen or something.
Yeah.
So did you get to watch the videos that I posted?
Yeah. I watched all of them and great. I appreciate the extra ones that you put together.
It's been so much fun.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
And yesterday morning, I committed to do morning and evening, and I forgot in the morning, and then my family came back from vacation yesterday. So last night I did my 20 minutes, but oh my gosh, it was so busy here. People coming in my bedroom trying to talk to me. I'm like, no, I'm not opening my eyes. I'm not acknowledging them. I'm staying like that was good.
I had to do that, I had to do that because when I first recommitted myself to meditation, Lauren was a baby, and then Eric and I were splitting up, and I just knew that I needed to, no matter what. So it's a little bit easier when she was very small, but as she got bigger,
Yeah.
It was harder and harder, and I'm kind of back in that a little bit now with Elora, but the toddler climbing all over you. And I just remember sitting there, and I'd get home from work, and I'd pick her up, and I'd give her a snack, and then I would sit down somewhere, get her set up with something, and go sit down and close my eyes. And they don't want anything to do with you until you're doing something that is important to you. And then she'd be crawling all over me, Evelyn, and I remember that my attention would be on my technique. I would be able to just let her be there. And then other times, of course, within a moment, I'd be irritated, and then I'd come back to my technique, and then I'd be laughing, because it was really cute. She'd be like trying to get in my face and get me to pay attention to her, and then it was just this dance. And so that was like 12 years ago, and as I've continued throughout life, I see that I have that same thing happen in real life throughout the day. Do you know what I mean? It's the cycle of something irritates me. The same thing that irritates me one moment can be humorous to me in another moment. Taking it personally, putting more attention on that thing rather than on my breath or the mantra technique. And ultimately, all of the techniques for me are meant to give us an easy path back to that most peaceful quality, that ease and that simplicity. So all day long coming back to that, and definitely at other points in life, like after Lauren got a little bigger and she needed me less, it was much easier for me to stay in that space and come back to that space. And then, as you know, some of the personal things in my life in the last few years, you add on top of that sleeplessness or grief and processing a lot of things in your nervous system. And this is part of what I am going to talk about today, is that there's outside distraction, and then there's also whatever's going on in your nervous system, and how those actually change the quality of the meditation. And that's why we can't care about the quality of the meditation. On one hand, we want to endeavor to sort of prioritize and protect that space, but on the other hand, like even if I was sitting here by myself with very little possibility of any distraction, my mind would come up with distractions. And you just what I've been trained with since 2010 is, who cares? You can't care. It's just part of the movement of life. And so when you notice, it is exactly like exercising a muscle and doing a push-up or doing a crunch. that expansion and contraction is important for us to be able to stabilize our experience in that return back to the mantra, the technique, but more importantly and ultimately to that peaceful quality, which is easy to find in some moments. That, you know, like all of a sudden, I'm sure when you're painting, you're like, you're in union. You know, there's no you there. There's just the experience unfolding, right?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I lose track of time.
Yeah, and so one example that I've heard a lot is artists doing their craft, whether it's being on stage performing or with the paintbrush in hand or writing, you know, any of those things.
Yeah.
And so the next thing is, how do we sustain that? And some people would say, well, you can't sustain that all the time. And I would say the Yoga Sutras say that you can, and I know people who do. And that's my goal and what I endeavor toward. So what I mean by that is, how do I choose to be in a state where I'm just out of the way and life is happening through me, and I don't have to manage that and monitor that so carefully. You know, as a spiritual seeker, it's been amazing to me how scary that has felt, to let go of control. Like, well, what if I don't grow the right way? What if I don't see something? You know, how will I know? And my teacher would always say, the universe is constantly giving you feedback. Here's a place where you got irritated. What's in that for you? We don't overthink that, but coming to the present moment and going, oh, that was irritating. That's interesting. Like, I love the thing that you say all the time, Evelyn, which is, I'm curious, or I wonder. And I think that that's a really important attitude to take on the journey of a meditation practice. So that we go, well, I mean, I don't want to be inquisitive about all the thoughts I'm having during meditation. That's a different thing. That is like contemplative, you know, and psychoanalysis, and that's not what I'm doing during meditation. During meditation, I'm dissolving myself as though I were, my teacher would say, a salt doll into the Mediterranean Sea. And every time I bring my attention back, I'm dissolving this sense of separation that I have, this sense of needing to be in control, this sense of the very thing that actually keeps me in suffering when I can't be present, when I think that I'm in charge of the universe, when I think that I'm separate from whatever is anything, love, peace, you know, there's an individual sense of a me, but when you're in your art craft, when you get into a deep state of meditation, there's no sense of a me. There's just this beautiful unfolding happening.
Yeah.
And I have experienced that a lot with my eyes open. So not doing anything in particular, choosing for that experience in the middle of the coffee shop, or you know, at my mom's place, you know, where her environment's a little different than one that I would you know, choose to create for myself, and you know, it's a little bit tight in there, a little bit smoky in there, and I can put my attention on how tight it is, how warm it is, how smoky it is, or I can put my attention on the love that exists between my mom and I, you know. So a big part of all of this is just where you put your attention. And so could you share just a little bit about right now, after having said all of this experience that you had with everybody coming and going, and how you noticed your attention, you know, coming and going? Like, can you see that?
Oh yeah, I totally see that. And I was witnessing my experience as I was going through and noticing how I was feeling when I was hearing thumping on my head upstairs and, opening up the door and waiting. They were waiting like, like, okay, what's going on? Is she going to look at me? And and they just laughed. And then so I was noticing how I could hear your voice. I was like, okay, is there peace in this moment? Is there peace in this moment? And consciously choosing and realizing how easy it is for me to give up on what I'm doing to turn my attention to my family, their needs, and how yesterday I consciously chose to not to choose my practice at that moment, and that was good because it's a new muscle that I'm building to choose and commit to re-choose my commitment every time I have a distraction coming.
Yes.
Yeah. And because it happens not just yesterday when I was meditating, it happens when I paint, it happens when I work in my business, it happens all the time. So that was good. That was a good practice, and I proved to myself that I can do it. I can choose it. So that was good.
It feels like this is why, you've been in my life for some time, so I'm probably repeat things a lot, but it's because these are the fundamental things.
Mm-hmm.
That can feel like a huge victory, and it can feel like, how do I celebrate this? Because nobody's going to get this, You don't even know that you should, really, but you know it. You know it, but how do you do that? Well, I'm celebrating with you right now. We're working against inertia of old habits. And
yeah.
Every time you're able to, especially in those most difficult moments of special material where it's especially difficult, and family's a big one, we're able to, we have a victory. We have a victory for consciousness. We have a victory for rewiring our nervous system in a way that affords us greater degrees of physiological support for peace, physiological support for staying present, physiological support for self-love. Because we know that it's not just about, well, I know I read all these books and took all these classes. I have to be like really living into and practicing these things. And you and I both know that sometimes, life is coming at you and it's difficult to keep all those practices in place.
Yeah.
We know a lot, but then how do I shift my attention? And so for me, the thing I love about this is that all those other tools for me will come in really easily and effortlessly if I can shift my attention back to here, instead of on the noise, instead of on, even when I have had, I hurt my back really badly one time and I couldn't move for 2 days. And to just keep bringing my attention, I couldn't help but have my attention on that pain.
Yeah.
But there were thoughts around it that were making it worse. Oh my God, I can't handle this. Every time I would have a thought start to come up around it like that,
right,
I started to feel insane because it was so extremely painful. Like all there was the pain. And like instead, just being disciplined and using, this shifting of attention that I'm talking about.
mm-hmm.
Okay, I can't not notice this pain. It's really big, really like any circumstance in life. So I'm going to let my attention rest here without having thoughts around it to the best of my ability. And so that was a master initiation for me from life. Because until then, I didn't know anything about, apart from having a baby, I didn't know anything about doing this in that kind of intense physical situation. And then later I did get to play with this too when I gave birth to Elora. And the intense physical sensation being at the forefront, but not having the thoughts around it. I'm going to die. This is too much. I can't do this. And noticing, just being able to notice those thoughts and take attention back to just the sensation without the story around it, as soon as my mind wanted to chime in, it started to feel unbearable. But if I could just let my awareness rest on that pain, it was manageable by the universe, not by me. And that's how I got through those things. But it taught me the importance even more of, in mundane moments, of bringing attention back. When I shift my attention, when I'm not being present, how easy it is for my mind to run away from me. And invariably for me, it's going to start telling me awful things about myself and my life. That's me anyway. That's my mind. It likes to say that there's all these problems that are never going to be fixed enough for me to be able to just fully enjoy and be enough right now. So I like to be careful to the best of my ability in practicing keeping my attention right here. I'm going to talk a little bit about, do you have any questions about any of that before I go on to this whiteboard with some of the physiological stuff?
No, but thank you for mentioning the pain, because one thing yesterday I was very aware of my discomfort in my body. And really, it was annoying. And I didn't know exactly, what to do. I was focusing on it, and then I kind of followed it, and then I was just aware of it, but it was distracting.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I hear it's part of the practice to redirect the attention.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, even if it's emotion or not extreme pain, but like sensation in the body. Every emotion has a sensation in the body, I've noticed. And then also we have thoughts around it. And if you are uncomfortable in your body, I always recommend, and I think you've heard me say this before live, I was not raised in the tradition to get yourself in an uncomfortable position to sit and meditate. So make sure, and sometimes just sitting in an armchair, there can be things going on in your body that are uncomfortable. But I'm just saying this as a disclaimer, you guys, the rest of you who are going to watch this video, don't put yourself in a position where you're going to be uncomfortable. And if you find that you are, if you want to sit on a meditation cushion or on the floor because it feels more, what's the word I'm looking for? Authentic or professional, or like you're really doing it, if you need that, fine. But if you get uncomfortable, move your body. Because if your body is uncomfortable, your mind's going to be busier, guaranteed.
Oh yeah. So that's what happened, because part of it is, I can't move during that time. Until I said, who said?
Yes. Who said so?
Yeah. So, okay, good.
And there's something to be said for it. You don't want to be sitting there fidgeting the whole time. Because when I know for sure, for me, when I'm not being present, I fidget. I'm wired to be fidgety, and in one way or another. And so I sometimes will go unconscious, and that's whether my eyes are open or closed. And if I notice that I'm picking at my nails or my knee is bouncing up and down, I know I'm not being present. That's a good signpost for me. I went unconscious. And when that happens in meditation, I just slow down, I get back to the breath, I come back to my mantra, you know, it's really sweet. And then I go, well, you know, I guess there was probably a lot of thoughts that were unwinding, because what I've been taught is, I'll start drawing on this board now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's say this circle represents our nervous system, and these are all the different wirings and all of the different beliefs in our mind. So I had a candle that was burning way down, and it was starting to crack the glass candle holder.
Good.
I love my beeswax candles. I get them from Sharon Jones at Bedazzled. Anyway, I mean, if y'all don't know, beeswax candles are great for respiratory health and for burning up any nasty stuff in the air, whether like mold or pollen or anything. Anyway, so the nervous system, we all know about our conditioning and our wiring, and some of our wiring is never going to go away because we're these unique, amazing beings. But some of it, like you just said, we have rules in there. Who is that, you know? And it's a really great teaching to be aware of, that some of this is muscle memory held in our body. When something happens, especially for those of us who have any traumas, you know, the body responds in a certain way really quickly. As a little girl, I would shake and I would cry, and if someone raised their voice, just especially if a man had like a deep, loud, booming voice, because my dad did, and he could be kind of scary sometimes. And if a man raised their voice when I was little, I just, like a little animal, I would start shaking because my nervous system was wired in that way. And if you do any research on trauma, most of us have, you know, some form, right? I mean, something has happened in our life that has left an impression. What I'm talking about for my nervous system is PTSD, but not everybody has that. And mine has definitely been healed to a great degree by doing exactly what I'm about to tell you. And that is recognizing that all of these conditionings, all of the ways that we're wired can be bypassed and rewired. We used to say that they couldn't. When you and I were kids, Evelyn, the science said there's hard wiring. It can't be changed. That's what I learned. The myelin sheath grows over the neurological connections. Once they are made, when we're young, this sheath grows over this of protein, and it helps to be the conduit for it, and there's no rewiring that can take place. Well, research has found that that's not true. With meditation, the myelin sheath starts to go away, and then there's a possibility, maybe not right away. This is why change takes some time. Our reactions internally take some time. We can participate in that by where we're putting our attention, like I just was sharing. But then the myelin sheath goes away, then these neurological connections can start to, by nature, because we can't make it happen, but our bodies are extremely intelligent and know how to begin to rewire. So let's say that was this trigger response I was talking about, and it exists deep in the core for me. Well, it starts to change. And now there's a possibility for not going into that level of reaction anymore. So whether that's somebody taking something personally or going into shaking or just whatever the case may be, through practice, whatever no longer serves, whatever isn't of the highest good for that nervous system, that being, begins to just take care of itself in this way, and then new synapses have the possibility of connecting. I used to wonder why I couldn't just feel free or innocent, or like I couldn't find this sense of playfulness and innocence. And I understand now, it wasn't because there was something innately wrong with me. It wasn't because I was a jerk. There was this wiring that was trying to change itself, that over time, now in any given moment, I can tune into this beautiful sense of innocence and freedom and aliveness and playfulness if I realize that I'm taking things too seriously. Not by changing my circumstances, but by shifting where my attention is. And so when I do that, you know, I'm not supporting that old way. I'm affording myself this new way, and the more I do that, the more those new neurological connections can strengthen. And yes, myelin sheets can grow over them, and then my new state becomes one of greater degrees of self-love and passion and playfulness and a greater capacity to meet those challenging moments of life with power and boundaries and honesty and willingness to ask for help, which none of that existed in me before, you know? I mean, maybe it existed there, but the possibility was really slim with this physiological thing going on in there. Another part of the physiology is, so we've got all of this conditioning, and some of it is, we know you've learned how to paint. And so other people have learned how to do other things, and it's wonderful, and you don't want that conditioning to go away. It's become a new habit, right? And it's not gonna. There's so many things we've learned that aren't gonna go away just because I shift my attention from trying to be the controller of the universe or trying to manage my spiritual growth or whatever the case may be. But when we tune into that meditative state, this infinite aspect of ourselves, like you were talking about, just being witnessed to, this becomes what I put my attention on more. So all of this other stuff going on inside of me can do whatever it wants to do. And when I notice that I'm having a lot of thoughts, I can be sure of one thing: there's some healing taking place in my nervous system. And that healing is something that I'm looking for, you know? I want that. I want for that intrinsic, organic, natural healing to take place without, I mean, I can't manage that. Only nature can manage that, you know?
Right.
It's got to happen from inside. So when there are a lot of thoughts, you guys, that means that there's a lot of healing taking place in the nervous system. And my only job then is to bring attention back to this experience right here, which I'm going to say is the most peaceful quality of the moment, any degree of that. And then as you put more attention on that, we know what you put your focus on grows. So this becomes a little bit larger and a little bit larger the more we put our attention on it. Hi, Laura here. Oh, I can't pick you up right now, sweetheart. Oh, you want to draw? Okay. So the other part is, so instead of focusing on, oh, why am I having these thoughts? What, like dissecting what's going on, or why is this old toothache coming back, or why is this, you know, why am I having this sciatica thing going on? Instead of evaluating whatever's going on here, just bringing attention back to this, or like I said, if you have to put your attention on the pain, or give presence to something, even if it is a thought. Maybe it's a thought that you're supposed to do something with, then you just save it for later, and and address it. So sometimes we're supposed to do something, and we're so busy we're not listening to the internal guidance system. But like, for example, letting somebody know something that's been bothering you, that will come up a lot in meditation for me if I'm not addressing it, or if there's something really wonderful I'm supposed to do for my business and I'm procrastinating, busying myself with life, that will keep coming up during meditation. So we, welcome it all in, and then refocus is the idea. Or I'm gonna draw a little bit too. So then I just have one more thing I want to share about the physiology, and then a little bit of homework to give everybody. So we know when we get into a meditative state, the brain waves from the right and left hemisphere and from the frontal cortex to the occipital lobe cortex become in coherency with one another. That's right, Elora. So there's this nice harmonious wave pattern that shows up on the EEG machine when someone's in a peak moment. Probably that's how it would look every time you're painting, you know. And then when we get into that deep state of meditation, but also I have been hooked up to the EEG machine or something similar to it anyway, when I was not with my eyes closed, when I was just sitting there actually at a computer with my eyes open, and this person brought this machine in and wanted me to play with this awareness thing, and it was measuring my brain waves while I was doing this. They're like, how are you doing this with your eyes open? What do you know, this is amazing. And I was giggling because I didn't feel like I was doing anything special, but also because science was then proving what I felt like I knew to be true in my own experience. I can shift my attention and keep it there. And that's been practiced over years. But the thing I want to tell you about that is, so getting into this state only takes a moment. And if you practice it more and more, you can sustain that and stay in that experience for longer and longer periods of time. And then you'll forget, and then you'll come back. You'll have to come back, and coming back is the good news. So it doesn't matter how long, you know, we forget, whether our eyes are closed or open. The coming back is always an option. And if we can just remind ourselves, who cares that I forgot? Who cares that I went unconscious? Who cares that it's been, you know, hours or whatever? I get to come back, and that is what I'm going to do right now. So Mama, this starts happening in the brain. Elora. That's a book. Sit. And then when that happens, the brain starts to release, I'm not going to write this down, serotonin and dopamine and all of these natural, happy, healthy hormones, rather than what happens when our mind's trying to keep, our attention, rather, is trying to keep up with all those thoughts throughout the day. It's very stressful to the nervous system. And you heard me say this before, Evelyn, and we had a good talk about this. The mind itself, the attention bouncing between the past and the future unconsciously, not structured, not like you and I have talked about, you know, dreaming, envisioning the future and like gratitudes for the future and healing 7 generations before and ahead of us. And that's a whole different conversation. But what I'm saying is, it's been proven that when our mind is let to roam wild, balancing between what did I just do and reanalyzing that, and what am I going to do and you know, just constantly doing that, the cells in our body are very stressed out by that, and the cortisol is increased. And all of the 6 major diseases in our culture are a direct result of an overabundance of cortisol in a person's nervous system. So heart disease, asthma, anything having to do with inflammation, cancer, all of these are, you know, cortisol exacerbates all of these issues and encourages them. So when you counter that by coming present, you are stopping the flow of cortisol, number 1, and number 2, you're increasing these lovely, yummy hormones in the nervous system. And that starts in the brain and drips down through the body. So then the cells can stop craving, because they very much like my addiction to coffee. The cells in our body are waiting for that cortisol. They're like, okay, when's the next dose? And when we start to give them the serotonin and the dopamine and things like that, those cell receptor sites start to turn on and remember and recall, and then start to crave that and start working in our favor as well. And then our whole body is working in sync with us to return back to the present moment. So it's pretty cool. At first we're working against inertia. Physiologically, not just who I am and what I'm used to doing, but physiologically, and then, wow, amazing. But then the physiology starts working advantageously for us. Isn't that cool?
That's great. Yes.
the more I practice, the more I know that that's true in an intuitive way. But the more science comes out around all of this, like I just did a talk for at superior physical therapy, and not all physical therapists are into the whole mind body spirit connection thing, but they very much are. They add in the spirit piece there.
Oh, good.
They've all been through this. Shoes? Oh, okay, just a minute. But so it was very surprising to me, because I thought I was going to go do this talk on meditation from a really scientific standpoint, and I did. But he started bringing in the whole spirit piece. You know,
the whole what?
The whole spirit piece.
Oh,
which was a delightful surprise.
Good. Yes.
You know, I mean, it was very cool. So the world is changing. I wouldn't, I wouldn't have been at a physical therapy event 15 years ago and had that happen. You know?
That's amazing. That's great.
All right, so now, I know, thank you. Thank you. With this information, I just find it is supportive of understanding that this process isn't personal, but I do have a responsibility or the action of engaging and coming back with eyes open and closed, and not caring, you know, whatever happens with my eyes closed, however much I have to come back, that's great. I just did 50 push-ups. I just did 100 push-ups, you know, if it's really busy in there.
Yeah.
And likewise with eyes open, if I'm willing to use it as frequently as I can remember to, then I am then setting myself up for even more exercising, reversing the cortisol and rewiring my nervous system and changing my habits. And one of the things I love about you too, Evelyn, is that you remind me of that pleasure and playfulness, and that those things are important. I don't want to focus just on not being stressed out and irritable and tired. I don't want to just focus on that. I want to focus on the peace, the ease, the joy, the pleasure. And so for me, it's not that I'm trying to move away from something, although I started this journey trying to move away from something. I wanted to get away from the pain and the suffering. But it becomes this beautiful, exquisite journey of how just to be here, not only to get pleasure and joy and freedom, but just to get to be here. So play with that. That's part of it. When you notice that you're trying to get away from, oh, good job. When you're trying to get away from something, you know, like the pain, the suffering, the irritation, the discomfort, to just simply shift back to practice and surrender that. That's active surrender. That's active letting go. And then also welcome in the movement toward joy and peace and freedom and self-love and all those things. But also surrendering that, like also just being willing to go, now I know I'm moving toward that. And that's my intention. And what's the most peaceful quality of right now? Like, because that's where I'm going to notice it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, I guess we're going to end there. But I will post some specific homework. And
okay.
Okay, Laura. I'm so glad you could join me on this morning.
Yeah, me too. It was great to connect.
Have a wonderful day. I love you.
Thanks. Thanks. I love you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.